Hello, parents and any teachers who may be watching. Welcome to Creating Math Ahas for Parents. I'm Dr. Sandy Atkins, Sandy, and in this video, we're going to spend some time looking at how your kindergartner may be learning addition. Now, there are many manipulative materials that we use in kindergarten to help them understand what is going on in addition. Now, the meaning of addition, typically think about the action of addition, putting together, combining, or joining. And these are not my meanings for addition. Much of what I learned is from the work that was done at University of Wisconsin on cognitively guided instruction, other research that has been done. But again, think of the action that takes place, or part total relationships, those ideas. Now, you can see here I've got some animal counters, vehicle counters, bear counters. You may find all kinds of counters in your kindergarten child's classroom. You may also see unifix cubes. These go together in one way. There might be some square tiles. You might see dominoes, different types of dominoes or clear counters, or even spray painted lima beans. But all of these are designed to give children an opportunity to not just know answers to computation, answers to those facts, but understand what is going on and build the meaning of addition, because that's what's going to happen in word problems, story problems. We don't see the word plus in story problems often, but we do see joining, combining, putting together. So when you see that plus sign when you're helping your child, please read it as 3 put together with 2, 3 joined with 2, 3 combined with 2. By using that language, it'll help them make sense of what they'll be seeing later and build that connection for the word problems. So one of the ways we help your children make sense of addition and understand the meaning of addition is through stories. And we give them a chance through what is going to be called dramatic play, but essentially just letting them act out a story. So let's say the story is 3 ducks are swimming in a pond, 2 ducks join them. Now, they can pretend that they are duck actors. They can pretend they're swimming in the pond and 2 ducks join them. Now, by seeing that, they start to get that meaning of addition, of joining, the language of the story problems, right? And they're acting it out. Now, what we do then is we give them a chance to act out the same story. We aren't going to change stories, but act the same story out using counters. Now, if you notice, I actually have a duck counter as part of my animal counters. So I just don't have enough duck counters for every child to use a duck counter. Now, the nice thing with your young child is that they will substitute other things for the ducks. It really doesn't bother them that they don't have actual ducks, okay? So they're okay that the horse is a duck and the cow's representing a duck. It's substitution, and that's a really important math idea for later. But they can act it out where they have 3 ducks swimming in a pond, 2 ducks join them. They might act it out the same thing with vehicle counters. If they want something to do with 3 ducks, and they'll have these guys swimming around, and then they'll have, oh, we don't have enough vehicles, they'll throw a bear in there. They can act it out with any type of counter, and then some of them will just use cubes, right? It's the idea that we want to get them starting to think about is that I can let anything represent the duck. That's how we start to develop the idea of unknowns, variables for later. When we start to develop that whole notion that a letter could equal something, a star could equal, a blank could equal. See, that first begins to be developed when they're starting to substitute in some type of manipulative material for something in a story. And then we have the 2 ducks join them. We could also just use the beans, right? So any counter would work, but they act out the story using a counters. So it's the same story acting out with counters. And then what we do is we use the same story and they draw a picture. Now, I apologize for my drawings, but see, just think about 3 ducks are swimming in the pond, 2 ducks join them. They can draw that type of picture. They can just hear the story and draw a picture. Now, at this point, the story isn't new. It's trying to represent the story in different ways. That is where the challenge is. They're doing 3 plus 2 over and over and over. And through that, they'll remember what 3 plus 2 is, right? Without us doing straight memorization of those symbols. So 3 ducks swimming, 2 ducks joined. So we add in same story, but represent with a picture. And then we get to the symbols later, because the symbols are actually the most abstract of them all. But if we look at this, see, what we're trying to do is just give this as a shorthand to that story. 3 ducks were swimming in the pond, 2 ducks joined them. And then there are actually a lot of different kinds of questions I could ask. I could ask how many ducks are in the pond. I could do that. I could also ask questions like, how many more need to come to have 6 ducks? Or 1 duck had to go home for supper. What happened, right? See, it's not always the how many in all question, but by the time your child has acted it out themselves, has acted it out with counters, has acted it out with a drawing, shows it with a drawing, then making this link, which is usually quite a challenge for children, is to write an equation linked to that story. This may come later, but even later in the year. Don't be surprised if your kindergartner is learning all about addition without necessarily seeing this early in the year, because they're doing all of these things to develop the meaning of addition. So one side of this is to begin with the story and have the children act it out themselves with counters, draw pictures. The other side is to start with a picture and have the children tell the story. Now we can do this like before and after pictures again. Here's the before, here's the after. They tell a story. Now it may be starting out like this, where I've given them a context and they have to do a story, or if they recognize these as ducks, might tell a story about ducks. The other side is at the extension. Once they get comfortable with this, I can just give them the outline of the pond and have them make up the stories. So here, we'll hide mine. And the children could just take turns making up a story, right? So here's the before, and they may show their partner a before. The partner covers their eyes, and then they show an after. And the partner has to tell them a story of what happens. So we have a before, and then we have an after. You see, and it's a turn-taking activity where they're making up addition context stories, those story problems, but they're doing it based on what they just experienced. And it's okay that all their stories in this case may be about ducks. Now, I can change the picture. See, I could just give them something that looks like this. So we're going to replace the pond with something that looks like this. Here's the before. Here's the after. And I might say, I want you to tell me a toy story about that. I'd like you to tell me a food story. Tell me a friend's story. Tell me a playground story. See, we want them to get used to the idea that I can have circles represent anything. We can have the same picture and tell many stories about that picture. So part of this, notice how the quantities are smaller because we're really focused on meaning and storytelling and getting that context for addition. And then because they're doing enough of these, where there is enough repetition, there'll be some memory related to that, not just memorizing. Your children may use a model that looks like this. This is a 5-frame. It gives a structure, an organizing structure around 5. Now, I showed in the introduction video that gave an overview for all the meaning and that whole idea of addition strategies. One strategy in grade 1 is linked to doubling. Now, I'm going to use the 5-frame to show you again, if you've got a chance to watch that video, just to revisit this whole idea of the 5-frame and how it becomes important for the strategies. So in grade 1, we're going to want your child to know what double 7 is. Now they can memorize 7 plus 7. And if they know that, that's fantastic, because knowing facts is very helpful. But see, what this does is this lets me see a double 5 and a double 2. Now, the nice thing about double 5 and double 2, see, what is double 7? It's 14. Double 5 is 10, and we use a 10 frame also. So it'd be 2 of these come together, make 10, double 2. Now, it's a little early for kindergarten to learn the distributive property or grade 1, but that using this model is really the distributive property. What is 2 times 7? 2 times 5 plus 2 times 2. See, we're building imagery for the distributive property later, but we're doing it through doubling and being purposeful in the models that we pick. Now, in kindergarten, we aren't looking at the doubling, but we're looking at the 5-frame. And we're looking at the 5-frame in many ways. It's just them showing 5 and them getting used to, well, 3 is 2 fewer than 5 because I have 2 empty boxes. And I can turn this 5-frame however I want, and there's still 3 in there. And then if you notice when we did 7, I put 7 this way. I could have put it this way or this way, but I get that 5 and 2. It's a nice organizing structure. It builds 5 and 2 as 7. It also shows me 7 in relation to 5 instead of 7 in relation to 10, like a 10 frame does. So your kindergartner may be doing quite a few things with the 5 frame. And even if your child can count to 10 or count to 100 going in, this imagery is really important because, as I showed you with the double 5-frame, we're getting at distributive property imagery and actually building the foundation for that in kindergarten. So you may see some time with that. You may see, I think on the starting slide or the starting sheet, I showed some domino images, and you had the regular domino, very familiar dominoes, but you see your child may also work with some 5-frame dominoes. And just think about some of the things we can do. See, one very important thing for your child is to build flexibility. So if you notice, do you see that 4 and that 4? They aren't identical, but they're both 4. When I use the regular dominoes, all of my 4s will look like this. But with these dominoes, they don't necessarily look the same. So I could do matching activities. They could make trains and match 4s to 4s. But one of the things they will eventually be doing in kindergarten is finding combinations for 5. So if you notice, what's one way I could make 5? 4 and 1. Now, the nice thing with this manipulative material, I don't know if you can see, right? But do you see how there's an empty space there? See, I'm doing combinations to 5, and I don't have to count on to do it. I see that hole and know, oh, I need to fill it. 4 and 1 is 5. So the purposeful use of materials, if I play here, 4 and 1, See, I can do 5. Now, what am I going to need to combine with 3? I can see it very quickly, can't I? I need 2, and I don't have to have 2 in that location. Any 2 will fill in that hole. So you will see them doing some early things that start to get at combinations to make 5, but before they play with these, they're going to be doing some work with this. Before they necessarily are playing around with these, they're also going to be acting out stories, or you might see them done in different orders, depending upon the program your child is using. But don't be surprised for the story to call for ducks and your child just pulls out anything, because they're comfortable with substituting ideas in for ducks or for whatever they're doing. Now, the other side of this, as we're getting into meanings of addition, thinking about all of that, one key thing is counting patterns. And I'll do a separate video on counting patterns and give you a little bit more information about the counting patterns. But just some things to think about. Quite often, we really work with our children on counting and getting them used to counting 1 to 10. There are storybooks with counting. There are all kinds of ways you work with counting. As I said, there'll be a separate video on counting, but just think about what needs to be memorized and the patterns of counting. See, the words 1 to 10 are unique, need to be memorized, and the teen numbers need to be memorized, and there are ways that we do that. And then we need to know the decade numbers, the tens, right? So we get decade numbers. So this would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And then in kindergarten, by the end of the year, there is some desire for them to count to 100. So we've got 100. But it's not just memorizing 100 words. It's understanding that when I'm counting from 20 to 29, there's a pattern to it. 20, 21, 22, just like the same pattern 1 to 9, 20 to 29, similar. If I go 30 to 39, the pattern is the same. I could pick 60 to 69. The pattern is the same. And one of the strategies your child will be learning in first grade is a count on. And where count on becomes really important is with a problem like 19 plus 3. See, what can I do? I can count on 3. So it's really important that your child not just know how to count to 100, but the patterns that occur, that within each decade, the pattern repeats. It's important that they can count by the decade numbers and are comfortable with that, because this one takes them across a decade. To count on 3, we need to know what to do from 19 to go on, 19, 20, 21. So we don't always start at 1 when we're counting. We want them to be able to start anywhere and count on. And count on usually 1, 2, or 3 is what I would say for that strategy. But as you're thinking about your kindergarten child learning about addition, I want you to think about the importance of context, the importance of story, the importance of patterning and looking for patterns, and then the idea that we are purposefully picking materials so that it helps your child make sense of ways to combine, but also helping them be very flexible in that one drawing could represent many things. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up Please subscribe so you'll know when other videos are available. Click the notifications bell. I'll leave a link below to the overview video for addition, so you'll get a chance to see how addition progresses up through the grades. If you have children in other grade levels, please check out those grade level videos. And thank you so much for watching.